Commander Zek'mol stood at the observation deck of the Eternal Dominion, watching the blue marble called Earth rotate peacefully below. Behind him, his senior officers assembled around the tactical display, their confidence practically oozing from every pore. Why wouldn't it? The Skar'thon Empire had conquered 847 worlds. 847. This little backwater planet would be number 848, and honestly it looked easier than most. Lieutenant Kralix pulled up the intelligence briefing and Zek'mol had to suppress a laugh. Sir, the dominant species calls themselves humans. They still use chemical propellants for warfare, actual explosives, like barbarians. Barbarians with nuclear weapons, Tactical Officer Vornak added, though his tone suggested he found even that amusing. Zek'mol waved a dismissive hand. Nuclear weapons from the previous century. Half of them probably don't even work anymore. What else? Fragmented political systems, Commander. Over 190 separate nations, most of them arguing with each other. No unified planetary government. No coordinated defense grid. Their most advanced spacecraft can barely leave their own atmosphere. Lex pulled up biological data next. And get this, sir. They're soft. Carbon-based, water-dependent, no natural armor plating, no regenerative capabilities worth mentioning. Average lifespan of 70 to 80 solar cycles. They're practically fragile. The War Council erupted in laughter. Fornik slapped the table. 70 cycles. My grandmother lived to 300 and she complained the whole time. Zek'mol grinned, feeling generous. Gentlemen, I believe High Command has given us what the humans would call a vacation. This isn't a conquest. It's a formality. He leaned back, already planning his commendation speech. How much of the fleet should we deploy? 10%. Sir, with respect, that might be insufficient, Kralix said, though he was smiling. They do have those primitive aircraft carriers and some satellite weapons. Fine. 30%. We'll make it look impressive for the archives. Zek'mol pulled up the deployment orders, signing off with a flourish. 3 dreadnoughts, 15 cruisers, 40 support vessels. Honestly, that's overkill, but I don't want historians saying we didn't do this properly. Vornik chuckled. Should we prepare occupation protocols, sir? Already done. We'll demand surrender. They'll panic. We'll land forces in their major population centers and be home in time for the Harvest Festival. Easy money, gentlemen. Easy money. The broadcast went out on every frequency, every wavelength, every communication channel Earth possessed. Zek'mol had practiced his intimidation speech, the one that had worked on 847 previous occasions. His hologram appeared over major cities, 40 feet tall, imposing, terrifying. Perfect. People of Earth, I am Commander Zek'mol of the Skar'thon Empire. Your planet is now under our jurisdiction. You have 24 of your hours to surrender unconditionally. Resist, and you will be destroyed. Comply and you will be spared. This is your only warning. He cut the transmission and waited for the panicked responses. The begging, the desperate offers of tribute, the inevitable collapse of their primitive governments. What he got instead was, well, confusing. The first response came from something called Twitter. A user named Boston Mike 617 posted new phone who dis, with a picture of a cartoon frog. Within minutes it had 17 million likes. Sir, Karyak said, staring at his screen with visible confusion. They're responding with what appears to be humorous images and jokes. I don't understand. Did they not comprehend the threat? Another message came through official channels from someplace called Domino's Pizza. Hi Zek'mol, we noticed you have 40 ships in orbit. We're running a special, buy 39 pizzas, get one free. We deliver. Zek'mol blinked. Once. Twice. Are they mocking us? I believe so, sir. There's also a website that started something called crowdfunding for a welcome wagon. They've raised $3 million to, and I quote, bring you proper Earth snacks and teach you about football. Fire warning shots, Zek'mol ordered, his voice tight. Target their military installations. Nothing lethal, just enough to show we're serious. The Eternal Dominion's weapon systems engaged, sending precise energy beams into 3 separate military bases. Buildings exploded. Runways cratered. Alarms shrieked across the planet. Surely now they'd understand. The responses poured in. Rude. Well, that escalated quickly. Guys, I think they're serious, lol. Anyone got alien invasion on their bingo card? A government official from the United States appeared on screen, looking tired. Commander Zek'mol, we're willing to negotiate, but you should know that firing on us was a really bad idea. Really bad. Like you have no idea how bad. That wasn't a negotiation, Zek'mol snarled. That was a demonstration. Surrender, or else. The human shrugged. Or else what? You'll shoot more buildings? We have insurance for that. Zek'mol closed the channel, breathing heavily through his filtration slits. Begin landing operations. Clearly these primitives need a more direct demonstration. The landing craft descended on New York City at dawn, their shadows falling over Manhattan like the hand of doom itself. 40 craft, carrying 2,000 Skar'thon shock troops, the finest warriors in the Empire. They'd chosen New York specifically. Major population center, economic hub, symbolic target. This would break human morale instantly. The craft touched down in Central Park, their landing gear crushing benches and hot dog carts. The assault ramps lowered, and Zek'mol's elite forces emerged in perfect formation, weapons ready, armor gleaming. What they found was traffic. Just traffic, cars honking, people yelling at each other, a taxi driver leaning out his window screaming, "Hey, I'm walking here. Oh wait, no, I'm driving here. Either way, move your spaceship." Lieutenant Kralix, leading the ground forces, activated his translator, certain it was malfunctioning.
It wasn't.
A crowd had gathered, but instead of screaming and running, they were holding up phones, recording, taking selfies with the landing craft in the background. Steve, get one of me with the alien ship," a young woman shouted, posing with her fingers in a peace sign. A street vendor was already setting up a cart.
Get you all.
"Survived the alien invasion t-shirts here, $20, 2 for $35. "Sir," one of Kralix's squad leaders reported, "the humans aren't running, they're just watching. Some are eating something called hot dogs." "Weapons free," Kralix ordered, raising his plasma rifle. "Fire over their heads. Scare them." The weapons discharged, bright blue energy bolts sizzling through the air above the crowd. People ducked. Some screamed, but within seconds they were back up, phones recording again. "Dude, did you see that?" someone shouted. "That was sick." Then the police arrived. Not military, just regular New York police officers, pulling up in cars that looked like they'd been in service since the last century. They got out, drew their pistols, actual projectile weapons, and one of them shouted through a megaphone, "All right, this is illegal parking, and also an invasion. Drop your weapons." What followed was less a battle and more a very confusing skirmish. The Skar'thon forces had armor, shields, plasma weapons. The humans had bullets, attitude, and apparently zero sense of self-preservation. A firefight erupted across Central Park, civilians scrambling behind trees and hot dog carts while police officers and an increasing number of armed civilians returned fire. The Skar'thon won, obviously. Their technology was superior, but it took 3 hours. 3 hours to secure a park against primitives with chemical weapons, and they'd lost 4 soldiers. 4 to bullets. Kralix stood among the smoking trees, watching human reinforcements set up barricades 2 blocks away. They weren't retreating. They were regrouping. He activated his comm link. "Commander Zek'mol, we've secured the landing zone, but sir, there's a problem." "What problem?" Zek'mol demanded from orbit. "You have plasma rifles against pistols." "Yes, sir, but they're not running away. They're adapting. And sir," one of them threw a trash can at Private Zorath and knocked him unconscious. "A trash can, sir." Zek'mol stared at his tactical display, watching the little red dots representing his forces surrounded by thousands of blue dots representing humans. The blue dots weren't fleeing, they were multiplying. "Hold position," he finally said. "Reinforcements incoming." He turned to Vornak. "This is taking longer than expected." "Sir, they're primitives. We'll have them pacified by sunset." Zek'mol nodded, but a small uncomfortable feeling had started growing in his stomach, something that felt suspiciously like doubt. 2 weeks into the occupation, Commander Zek'mol had stopped sleeping properly. Not because the humans were winning, they weren't, but because every single morning brought a new incident report that made his brain hurt. The Skar'thon Empire now controlled, technically 15 major Earth cities, London, Paris, Beijing, New York, Los Angeles, and 10 others. Controlled was perhaps too strong a word. Occupied, sure. Actually in charge, that was debatable. Zek'mol sat at his desk, scrolling through the daily briefings with increasing horror. The humans were adapting. Not slowly, not carefully, but with terrifying reckless speed that defied all military logic. Sir, Lieutenant Kralix entered, holding a datapad like it might explode. The morning reports. Just tell me, Zek'mol said, rubbing his temples. I can't read another one without pharmaceutical assistance. Resistance fighters in Berlin have started using modified traffic drones to drop homemade explosives on our patrols. In Tokyo, they've organized flash mobs that surround our forces and just stand there filming until we retreat. The Mexico City garrison reports that local fighters are using the city's tunnel systems to appear and disappear at will. And, sir, about the Florida incident. Please don't say Florida, Zek'mol interrupted. Every report from Florida makes me want to retire. A human male identification says his name is Dale Kowalski, age 43, stole one of our hover tanks last night. Stole it, sir. He drove it through 3 neighborhoods, stopped at a drive-through restaurant, and when we finally cornered him, he claimed he thought it was a rental. Zek'mol's eye twitched. How does one steal a hover tank? He used a crowbar and apparently said, and this is a direct quote from our translator, "You guys really should lock your stuff." The door chimed. Vornik entered, looking shell-shocked. "Commander, we have another situation." "Of course we do." A human child, age 12, name of Marcus Webb, hacked into one of our military drones using what he called his gaming laptop. He then proceeded to fly it around his neighborhood, waving at people before crashing it into a swimming pool. When we arrested him, he asked if he won. "Won what?" Zek'mol demanded. "He wasn't clear, sir. I think he thought it was a game." Zek'mol stood, pacing. How are they doing this? Our technology is centuries ahead of theirs. About that, sir, Kralix pulled up a video. This footage is from Chicago. Watch. The video showed a Skar'thon soldier, fully armored, approaching an elderly human female outside her home. She was perhaps 70 years old, gray-haired, wearing an apron. The soldier raised his weapon, clearly trying to intimidate her into compliance. The woman picked up a cast-iron skillet from her porch, a cooking implement, and swung it like a club. The impact against the soldier's helmet rang like a bell. The soldier stumbled. She hit him again. And again. The soldier went down. Other humans emerged from houses, and the patrol retreated. "That's Gladys Henderson," Vornik said quietly. Age 72, retired teacher. She's now leading a neighborhood resistance cell of approximately 40 civilians. They call themselves the Iron Skillet Brigade. Zek'mol sat down heavily. The phrase had become a mantra at every briefing, repeated by every officer with increasing desperation. Humans did what now? "Sir, if I may," Kralix said carefully, "I believe we miscalculated. Humans don't fight logically. They fight emotionally, creatively. They see warfare as problem-solving. Every time we adapt, they adapt faster. Every weapon we deploy, they find a counter. They're not supposed to be this resilient." "Tell me something I don't know," Zek'mol muttered. "Sir, 3 more garrisons are requesting additional support. Moscow, Mumbai, and Sydney. Sydney is special, sir." "Why? What's happening in Sydney?" Kralix and Vornik exchanged glances. "Perhaps it's better if we show you." The video conference with the Sydney garrison commander, Captain Thelacor, was not going well. Thelacor's face filled the screen and he looked like he'd aged 10 cycles in 2 weeks. "Commander Zek'mol, with all due respect, and I mean this sincerely, we need immediate evacuation from the Australian continent." Zek'mol blinked. "Evacuation? Captain, you have 2,000 troops and air support. What could possibly—" "Sir, it's not the humans. Well, it is the humans, but it's also everything else on this cursed landmass. The wildlife here, Commander. The wildlife is trying to kill us." "I'm sorry, what?" Thelacor pulled up a series of images. Spiders. Large spiders. Large spiders. "This is a huntsman spider. It's harmless to humans, apparently. It's the size of my face. We found 6 of them in the barracks last night. My soldiers are sleeping in full armor now because they're terrified something will crawl on them. Captain, your elite shock troops. There are snakes here, sir. Dozens of species, most of them lethal. All Private Kael'nar stepped on one yesterday. All the medics said if we'd found him 30 seconds later he'd be dead. The humans, they just pick them up and throw them away. Bare-handed, sir. Fornick leaned into frame. Captain, surely you're exaggerating. Negative, sir. Yesterday a crocodile, that's a large aquatic predator, climbed onto our base perimeter. It was 6 meters long. 6 meters. We shot it 14 times before it stopped moving. The local humans told us that was a small one. A small one, sirs. Zek'mol felt his grip tightening on his armrest. What about the human resistance? Oh, they've weaponized the wildlife, sir. 3 days ago they released dozens of snakes into our supply depot. We lost a full day's rations because no one wanted to go in there. Yesterday someone threw a spider at Corporal Ventoke. He fired his plasma rifle in a panic and destroyed our communications array. The Australians just laughed. Another officer appeared on screen behind the liqueur. Sir, we have another incident. What now? The liqueur asked, with the weariness of a man who'd given up hope. A human somehow released an entire swarm of magpies near our morning formation. They're attacking everyone with exposed skin. Sergeant Kranix is in medical. One of the birds went for his eyes. The Kael turned back to the camera. Commander, the humans here are different. They live among creatures that would terrify any sane species and they treat it as normal. One civilian told me, and I quote, "Yeah, mate. Australia's pretty chill once you get used to everything trying to kill you. They think this is chill, sir. This is their version of chill." Request denied, Zek'mol said, though his voice lacked conviction. We cannot evacuate an entire continent because of local fauna. Then send reinforcements, sir, and tell them to bring therapy. The channel closed. Zek'mol stared at the blank screen. Did he say therapy? Fornick asked. He said therapy. Sir, about the Australian situation, Kurlix pulled up a map. Maybe we could just leave Australia alone, focus on other continents. Absolutely not. The Skar'thon Empire does not retreat from wildlife. Famous last words, as the humans would say. Chief Medical Officer Rintok had requested an urgent meeting. Zek'mol found him in the medical bay surrounded by holographic displays of human biology, looking like he'd seen a ghost. Commander, we need to talk about the human prisoners. What about them? Sir, I've completed biological analysis on 17 captured humans. The results are disturbing. Rintok pulled up a scan. This human male was shot 3 times during capture, 3 plasma burns, 2nd degree, across major muscle groups. By all rights, he should be dead or dying. And
he's healing
rapidly. Regeneration rates that match our own despite having no genetic enhancements. Watch this. Rintok played security footage. A human prisoner, wounded, sat in a cell. Over the course of 6 hours, visible through time-lapse, the burns began closing. Not completely, but noticeably. That's impossible, Zek'mol said. It gets worse, sir. Pain tolerance tests show humans can function through injuries that would incapacitate most species. We had to recalibrate our equipment 3 times because we thought it was broken. And then there's this. Rintok pulled up chemical analysis. When humans are injured or stressed, their bodies flood with adrenaline. It's a natural stimulant that increases strength, dulls pain, and sharpens focus. They get stronger when they're hurt, sir.
Stronger.
Fornick leaned forward. That's not biologically sound. Tell that to the humans. I've documented cases of human females lifting vehicles off trapped children, human males fighting effectively with broken bones. Their species has a colloquial term for this phenomenon, second wind. They literally come back stronger mid-fight. Zek'mol felt cold. Why? Why would evolution create such a thing? Rintok pulled up planetary data. I did some research, Commander. Earth's classification in the Galactic Registry. The words appeared on screen and everyone in the room went silent. Classification: Death World. Threat level: Extreme. Recommendation: Avoid. It was there the whole time, Rintok said quietly. In the registry, Earth is a death world. High gravity, violent weather, aggressive fauna, competing apex predators. Humans didn't develop technology to conquer their planet. They developed technology to survive it. Everything on that planet is trying to kill them, and they're still the dominant species. Zek'mol sat down heavily, all the pieces clicking together. The resilience, the adaptability, the sheer stubborn refusal to give up. They weren't fighting an invasion. They were fighting Tuesday. "We made a huge mistake," he said quietly. "Yes, sir," Rentek agreed. "We really did." By month 3, Zek'mol had stopped referring to the situation as an occupation and started calling it what it really was, a disaster. The humans had reverse-engineered Skar'thon technology, completely. In 12 weeks they'd gone from chemical propellants to plasma weapons, from satellites to energy shields, from confused primitives to a coordinated global resistance that somehow operated like a single organism despite having no central government. "How?" Zek'mol demanded during the morning briefing. "How were they sharing information this quickly?" Lieutenant Kralix pulled up something called social media. "Sir, they use a global communication network. Everyone has access. They post videos, tactical information, memes." "What's a meme?" "I'm still not entirely sure, sir, but they seem to use them for morale and coordination. Look at this one." An image appeared. A Skar'thon soldier running from a human with a cast iron skillet. Caption: "When you realize Earth isn't a vacation destination." "They're mocking us with pictures?" Vornik asked incredulously. "Yes, sir. And it's working. Human morale is higher now than when we arrived. They think this is, and I'm quoting here, kind of fun actually." Zek'mol pulled up the casualty reports. 247 Skar'thon soldiers dead, over 800 wounded, equipment losses mounting daily. The numbers kept getting worse. "Sir, urgent communication from Colorado Garrison," a communications officer interrupted. The screen filled with static, then a panicked voice. "This is Captain Mortek. We're under heavy attack in the mountain region. They're everywhere. They know the terrain. We don't. They're picking us off one by one. We need immediate evac." The signal cut to screaming. Then nothing. "What happened?" Zek'mol demanded. "Battalion 12 is gone, sir. All 400 soldiers. Ambushed in the Rocky Mountains. Human resistance fighters used the elevation, weather conditions, and natural cover. Our forces never stood a chance." Vornik pulled up naval reports. "I knew us, sir. It's not just land forces. 3 days ago our submarine hunter craft engaged human submarines in the Pacific Ocean. The humans used migrating whales as cover, moving between the pods, making targeting impossible. Then they surfaced and fired modified torpedoes. We lost 2 ships." "They used animals as cover? Deliberately?" "Yes, sir. They knew the whales' migration route. They planned for it. Sir, they're not fighting like any species we've encountered. They're fighting like they're having fun with it," Kralix finished quietly. The tactical display lit up with new alerts. Tokyo Garrison under attack. São Paulo reporting coordinated strikes. London forces requesting evacuation. The entire invasion was collapsing in real time. "Pull up Tokyo feed," Zek'mol ordered. The screen showed nighttime combat in Tokyo's streets. Skar'thon forces behind barricades, humans attacking from every direction. But this wasn't random resistance. This was military precision. Leading the charge was a human male, maybe 35 years old, coordinating teams with hand signals, moving with the efficiency of someone who'd trained for exactly this scenario. "Identify that human," Zek'mol demanded. "Jack Morrison, sir. Former Special Forces. He's been hitting our positions across Asia for 6 weeks, 23 successful raids, 0 casualties on his team. He's really good, sir." Zek'mol watched Morrison direct his fighters using Skar'thon weapons against Skar'thon soldiers, improvising tactics on the fly, grinning like he was enjoying himself. The human noticed a drone filming him, looked directly at the camera, and saluted. Then he threw a grenade. The feed cut. "Sir, we're losing," Vornik said quietly. "Not slowly, not eventually. We're losing right now." Zek'mol stared at the tactical map, watching red markers disappear one by one. 847 conquests. 847 victories. And now, this. Earth. Primitive, fragmented, supposedly soft Earth was handing the Skar'thon Empire its first defeat. "Request reinforcements from High Command," Zek'mol said, his voice hollow. Sir, they're not sending reinforcements. They're sending diplomats. What? A diplomatic delegation is en route, sir. They want to negotiate peace. Zek'mol closed his eyes. We've lost. The Skar'thon diplomatic delegation arrived in Geneva 3 days later, led by Ambassador Velthar, a career diplomat who'd negotiated surrender terms for dozens of species. He walked into the conference room with the confidence of someone who'd done this hundreds of times. Waiting for him was a single human woman. She stood when they entered, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture. Ambassador Velthar, I'm Patricia Okonkwo representing the United Earth Coalition. Please, sit. Velthar's confidence wavered slightly. United Earth Coalition. The humans had formed a unified government. When? Miss Okonkwo, we're here to discuss terms of ceasefire and potential. You're here because you're losing, Patricia interrupted, her smile never wavering. Let's not pretend otherwise. Please, sit. I've prepared refreshments. Coffee. It's a human stimulant. Quite good. Velthar sat, his delegation arranging themselves nervously. Patricia poured coffee with steady hands, completely calm. Let's review where we are, shall we?
Patricia pulled up a holographic display.
Zek'mol, watching via secure feed from orbit, felt his blood run cold. She had everything. Troop positions, supply routes, command structures. Your forces in North America are at 42% strength. Europe, 38%. Asia, 51%, but dropping daily. Your supply lines are compromised in 7 locations. You've lost 18 ships including 2 dreadnoughts. Would you like me to continue? How do you have this information? Velthar demanded. Because we're very good at hacking, Ambassador. Your security protocols are sophisticated but not perfect. We've been inside your network since week 2. She took a sip of coffee. We know your communication codes, your tactical frequencies, your encryption methods. We've been listening to everything. One of Velthar's aides whispered urgently in his ear. His face went pale, well paler than usual. What is it? Zek'mol demanded through the private channel. Sir, Vornik replied. She's right. They've been inside our network. Everything we've transmitted they've heard. Every plan, every movement, they knew it all. Patricia continued, her tone conversational, almost friendly. We've also located your homeworld, Skar'thon Prime. Yes, lovely planet from what our probes show. 3 moons binary star system, population of 14 billion. We're not planning to attack it. Mind you, we're not conquerors, but we could, if we wanted to. Just so we're clear on the power dynamic here. The room went silent. Velthar's diplomatic composure shattered. You're bluffing. You don't have faster-than-light capability. Patricia smiled wider. We didn't. Past tense. Funny thing about humans. Ambassador, when you invade us, you leave all your fancy technology lying around. Crashed ships, abandoned equipment, that hover tank some guy from Florida stole. We're very good at taking things apart and figuring out how they work. 6 weeks ago we achieved faster-than-light travel. Yesterday we sent our first probe to your home system. It should arrive in about 3 months. Velthar stood abruptly. This is impossible. 3 months ago you were primitives. 3 months ago you weren't trying to kill us, Patricia replied calmly. You wanted to see what humans do when threatened? Congratulations, you found out. Now, let's discuss terms. Our terms. You're going to withdraw every single ship, every single soldier, and you're going to do it within 72 hours. In return, we won't hunt you across the galaxy. Sound fair? Zek'mol closed his eyes, listening to his empire's humiliation broadcast for all his officers to hear. 48 hours later, Zek'mol stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, coordinating what High Command was calling a strategic withdrawal and what everyone else accurately called a retreat. All ground forces evacuated, he asked. 96%, sir. We lost some in the extraction process. Of course we did. Zek'mol pulled up the fleet status. They'd come with 40 ships. They were leaving with 29. The rest were debris. Sir, prepare for emergency evasion, the tactical officer shouted. The view screen lit up with incoming fire, not from orbital platforms. Those had been neutralized. From the surface, ground-based railguns, massive weapons that shouldn't exist. firing projectiles at relativistic speeds. How did they build railguns? Vornik shouted, gripping his console as the ship rocked. 6 weeks, sir. They built orbital-capable railguns in 6 weeks. The Eternal Dominion shields flared as projectiles slammed into them. Alarms screamed. Hull breaches on decks 9 and 12. Power fluctuating. One of the escort cruisers exploded, hit dead center by a railgun round. They're targeting the fleet, Krelix reported. Multiple launch sites. Sir, they're coordinating fire from 17 locations. Above them, human aircraft swarmed like angry insects, modified fighters, barely recognizable from their primitive predecessors firing plasma weapons they'd copied from Skar'thon designs. They moved erratically, unpredictably, making targeting nearly impossible. A human pilot flew directly past the bridge view screen, close enough that Zek'mol could see him grinning, before pulling an impossible turn and destroying a Skar'thon fighter. All ships, execute emergency jump, Zek'mol ordered. Get us out of here. The fleet began powering faster-than-light drives, but the humans weren't done. A coordinated strike from modified submarines, aircraft and ground forces hit simultaneously. 2 more ships went down. The Eternal Dominion shuddered as its jump drive engaged. The last thing Zek'mol saw before Earth disappeared from view was a broadcast, transmitted on every frequency showing humans celebrating in the streets. One message scrolled across every screen. Thanks for the tech upgrades. Don't come back. The retreat of the Skar'thon Empire, first defeat in 847 conquest, was complete. And somewhere on Earth Jack Morrison raised a beer and toasted the sky. Former Commander Zek'mol, now just Zek'mol, civilian consultant, stood before the Galactic Council chambers feeling every bit as humiliated as he deserved. They'd stripped his rank, disbanded his command, and now he was here to explain how the mighty Skar'thon Empire had been defeated by primitives who 3 months ago were still using gasoline-powered vehicles. The council chambers held representatives from 47 species, all of them staring at him with expressions ranging from pity to barely concealed amusement. The Vrelnian ambassador was openly laughing. Let me understand this correctly, Council Speaker Thunder said, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence. You lost to a species that weaponized their own wildlife, and cooking implements, and memes. Yes, Council Speaker. And you're here to warn us that humans are dangerous. Extremely dangerous, yes. The Vrelnian ambassador slapped his desk, howling with laughter. The mighty Skar'thon, conquerors of 800 worlds defeated by apes with sticks. This is the greatest comedy in galactic history. Zek'mol felt his face flush, but he pressed on. Council Speaker, you don't understand. Humans are from a death world. They heal impossibly fast. They get stronger when injured. They coordinate globally through something called social media, and they reverse-engineered our technology in weeks. Weeks. They went from primitive spacecraft to faster-than-light travel in under 3 months. Former Commander, you're exaggerating to save face. The alarms cut him off. Every screen in the chamber lit up simultaneously. Proximity alerts. An unidentified vessel had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly outside the station. A vessel broadcasting human identification codes. The chamber went silent. On the main view screen, a ship appeared. It was clearly built from modified Skar'thon technology, but improved, streamlined, more elegant. Humans had taken their design and made it better. This is the UES determination. Requesting permission to dock, a voice said in perfect galactic common. We're here for the council session. Hope we're not late. Thonder's mouths hung open, all 4 of them. Permission granted. 20 minutes later, the chamber doors opened and humans walked in. 5 of them, dressed in formal attire, moving with the confidence of people who knew exactly what they'd accomplished. Leading them was a woman who looked remarkably similar to that Special Forces operative, Jack Morrison. Greetings, Council, she said, her smile polite but carrying an edge. I'm Ambassador Rebecca Morrison, representing the United Earth Coalition. We're here to apply for Galactic Council membership and establish formal diplomatic relations. You want membership? Thunder stammered. We do. We've achieved faster-than-light travel. We've established a unified planetary government, and I believe we've demonstrated our ability to defend ourselves. She glanced at Zek'mol, her smile widening slightly. Thoroughly demonstrated. The Vrelnian ambassador leaned forward. You were primitives 3 months ago. We're fast learners, Rebecca replied. It's kind of our thing. Also, thank you for the technology donations. The Skar'thon Empire left quite a lot of equipment behind when they, retreated. We've made excellent use of it. Zek'mol watched her pull up a holographic display. Human colonies. Mars already being terraformed. The moon, fully industrialized. Orbital construction facilities, building more ships. In 6 months they'd expanded further than most species managed in decades. We're not here to threaten anyone, Rebecca continued. We're here to join the galactic community as equals. But let me be clear. Earth is off limits for conquest. We've established defense grids, early warning systems, and a rather impressive fleet. Anyone who tries what the Skar'thon tried will get the same results, possibly worse, since we've had time to prepare now. She looked directly at Zek'mol.
Me.
No hard feelings, by the way.
You.
Your invasion was actually great for unity. Nothing brings humans together quite like a common enemy, so thanks for that. The council chamber erupted in debate, but Zek'mol just stood there watching humanity announce itself to the galaxy not as victims but as equals, exactly as he'd feared they would. 3 days later, Zek'mol sat in his small apartment on a space station far from anywhere important, filing his final official report. Former officers didn't usually get to file reports, but High Command wanted a comprehensive analysis of what went wrong, for the historical record, so future commanders wouldn't make the same mistakes. He typed slowly, choosing each word carefully. Report title: Human Species Analysis and Recommended Protocols. Subject: Earth, Sol System, Human Civilization. Conclusion: Recommend complete avoidance of Sol System in any human-occupied territory. He stared at those words for a long moment, then began filling in the details. The report was 300 pages long. It detailed every failure, every miscalculation, every moment where the humans had surprised them. But the core message was simple. Humanity wasn't dangerous because of their technology or their numbers. They were dangerous because of what they were. They adapted to everything, instantly. Put them in an impossible situation, and they'd find 17 ways around it, 3 of which would be completely insane, but somehow work anyway. They were stubborn. Surrender wasn't in their vocabulary. Push them down, and they got back up angrier. They took never give up to pathological extremes. And spite. Oh, the spite. Humans ran on spite the way ships ran on fuel. They'd do impossible things just to prove they could, just to show you that you were wrong about them. The Skar'thon invasion, Zek'mol wrote in his conclusion, was not a military operation. It was a training exercise. We provided them with advanced technology, combat experience, and motivation to unite their fractured world. We gave them everything they needed to become a spacefaring civilization decades ahead of their natural development curve. We didn't conquer Earth. We created a rival. He attached the incident reports. All of them. Florida Man and the stolen hover tank. The 12-year-old who hacked military drones. Gladys Henderson and her cast-iron skillet. The Australian wildlife situation. The whales used as submarine cover. Every absurd, impossible moment that proved humans didn't fight like anyone else. His final paragraph read, Species Assessment. Humans are from a Class 12 death world. They evolved alongside predators, diseases, environmental hazards, and each other. Everything on their planet tried to kill them, and they're still the dominant species. They view warfare as problem-solving with violence. They will use anything, and I mean anything, as a weapon. They coordinate through humor. They get stronger when injured. They do not break. Recommend complete avoidance. Recommend updating Galactic Registry to classify humans as extreme threat level. Recommend anyone who ignores this advice deserves what they get. He filed the report and leaned back, pulling up news feeds from Earth. Humans had established their first permanent Mars colony, population 500. Growing daily, they were building a space elevator at the equator. Their ship production was accelerating. They'd made first contact with 3 other species, all peaceful so far, all probably terrified. Zek'mol allowed himself a bitter smile. Somewhere in the Galactic Council archives was the original Earth assessment. Primitive, fragmented, soft, easy conquest, 848. They'd been so wrong. A news broadcast caught his attention. Jack Morrison, the resistance fighter from Tokyo, being interviewed. The reporter asked him about the invasion. "Best thing that ever happened to us. Honestly," Jack said, grinning. "Nothing motivates humans quite like someone telling us we can't do something. You want us to surrender? We'll build spaceships out of spite. You want us to stay primitive? We'll reverse engineer your technology over a weekend. You want to conquer us?" He laughed. "Well, good luck with that." The reporter asked, "What was next for humanity?" "The stars," Jack replied simply. "All of them. We're done being stuck on one planet. The galaxy's a big place and we've got a lot of exploring to do." Zek'mol closed the feed and stared out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there humans were spreading, building, growing, becoming exactly what he'd feared, a major galactic power, one born from conflict, one that knew how to fight, one that would never ever back down. The Skar'thon Empire had 847 conquests, 847 victories, and one spectacular, catastrophic failure that had unleashed humanity on an unprepared galaxy. He thought about the hover tank thief, the child hacker, the elderly woman with her skillet, the Australian wildlife, the submarines using whales for cover, and Patricia Okonkwo calmly listing their tactical failures while sipping coffee. "Humans did what now?" he muttered to himself, the phrase that had haunted every single briefing. The galaxy's newest problem born from his own hubris. The irony was perfect. The Skar'thon Empire had wanted Earth as conquest number 848. Instead, they'd created their own worst nightmare, a species of stubborn, creative, spite-fueled survivors who now had advanced technology, and a really good reason to remember who'd attacked them first. Somewhere on Mars in that new colony, someone was probably already planning humanity's next impossible achievement. And Zek'mol, former commander of the Eternal Dominion, architect of the Skar'thon Empire's greatest defeat, could only watch and wonder what fresh horror humanity would unleash next. He raised a glass of Skar'thon whiskey to the view screen showing Earth in the distance. "To humanity," he said quietly. "The only species insane enough to turn an invasion into a training montage. The galaxy has no idea what's coming." He drank, the bitter liquid matching his bitter lesson perfectly. Somewhere in 17 languages including Galactic Common, humans were posting memes about the invasion. His favorite, if he was being honest, showed a Skar'thon soldier running away with text that read, "When you try to invade Earth but they weaponize the wildlife, their grandmas and the laws of physics." 3,300 words of pure human chaos documented for galactic history. The Skar'thon Empire would never live this down. And honestly, they deserved every bit of mockery coming their way. The end.